Good morning, I'm Brian Anderson. I'm the Executive Director of the Interagency Working Group on Coal and Power Plant Communities and Economic Revitalization. It is quite a mouthful, so we'll just call it the Energy Communities IWG for the rest of the day. But we're all here to talk about a number of projects across the administration, but specifically something called 48C, and I'll get to that in a little bit. I want to thank you for coming today and thank all of our speakers and our panelists as we go out today, and a special thanks to our partners, specifically Wade Buchanan and his team at the Colorado Office of Just Transition and the Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade, our community builders partners, and thirdly, our hosts here at the Colorado School of Mines for their support. So really, let's get right to it. We're here today because we know that energy communities have already undergone a transition of their economies, and many are still looking at that potential transition in the future. And from the beginning of the administration, with an executive order in the first week of the administration, we established our Energy Communities Working Group really to make sure that we're not leaving communities behind. That is our succinct mission. But the way we execute that is to bring together 11 federal agencies and all of their opportunities and ensure that these agencies, plus others that we've invited to the table and who constantly participate, that they have a focus on making sure that with the great opportunity that exists in our energy transition, that opportunity does not leave behind the energy communities that have built our country over the past century, or 2 centuries in some cases. And there are a number of ways to do that. We're going to talk through some of the specific levers that we're pulling in the agencies. But first and foremost, it comes with getting into the communities and learning about each individual community around the country, each energy community's potential pathway to transition and their vision and their desires for what the future looks like. And then we go from there. So what we have done is we've inverted the model of the federal government having all the agencies in Washington with a Congress appropriated funding, that then a community who's trying to revitalize their economy has to take their round peg and find the right square hole in the federal government and plug it in. So what we've done is we've inverted that model and we go to the communities first. We identify what your projects are, and we try to connect you to the agencies directly. And even we want to create a lifetime feedback loop to where if our programs are not meeting the needs of the agencies, now you have 2 pathways to give feedback. Certainly you can go to your congressional representatives, but we in the executive branch want to make sure that within our agencies, within the Department of Energy, Department of Transportation, Department of Interior, the Treasury, the Department of Commerce, Health and Human Services, Department of Education and Labor, and I think I already said Department of Commerce. But within all of our agencies, we're hearing directly from those that we're trying to make sure we're investing in the communities so that we can change our portfolios, change the way we release NOFOs or FOAs each and every year in the annual appropriation process to make sure that they're seeing the benefits on the ground that we want to see. Many of you in this room do know me. You've heard me talk. You know that I come from a coal family in West Virginia. 7 generations in West Virginia, including my 7-year-old son. The 7 generations, my grandfather was a coal miner, my dad worked in the oil and gas industry. I have seen it firsthand over my lifetime, the transition of communities from places in West Virginia that were once home to millionaires, to the highest population of millionaires in one county in the country was in southern West Virginia in the coal fields. And that county today has about 5,000 people and no economy really to speak of. I've seen it happen. We're not going to let it happen again. So what we're doing is, again, I said, putting together the agency opportunities, but a historic point in time to bring in together investments in the bipartisan infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the CHIPS and Science Act in a coherent industrial strategy that is not just go forward into that night, into that dark night, but to plan out how we're increasing domestic manufacturing, where when we're investing in solar panels in the Navajo Nation, we're investing in wind projects in Wyoming, that those investments are filled with the manufacturing sector that has been absent over the past few decades in these spaces. So that is core and heart to the 48C topic we're talking about today, this great tax credit in manufacturing with a floor of $4 billion for energy communities. That's a 30% tax credit at $4 billion. We're talking about $12 billion of investment in this particular tax credit, specifically designed to fit within that industrial strategy and making sure we're reshoring American manufacturing. Now, this is on top of, over the last 3 years in our energy communities, we have already facilitated over $20 billion of investments into energy communities. If you go to our clearinghouse, energycommunities.gov, I hope you went to that website to register today. But at energycommunities.gov, we have our tax credit maps. We've got a clearinghouse that has $590 billion of opportunities for energy communities today. Those are planned or open opportunities looking into the future. This also doesn't include 22 tax credits that are eligible for energy communities to make sure that the private sector is meeting us too. So when we think about over the last couple of years and since the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, private sector investment in manufacturing, clean energy manufacturing, has increased tremendously. We have some great data on the amount that increases, but within a community, that doesn't matter unless one of those investments are there. They're building jobs, they're building family supporting economies within your local communities. And so what we want to make sure again is that we're lifting up the opportunities for investment in energy communities. And I say this as a resident of an energy community, as a longtime resident of energy communities, that it is the last 40 years there's been a lot of disinvestment in your communities, in our energy communities. But the bones of the economy, the bones that go into making manufacturing location choices are all still there. What we need to do together is make sure that we're putting all the resources into ensuring that the infrastructure is upgraded and ready, and that the big banks on the coasts know the opportunity in the interior of the country and energy communities. And so we have a dedicated effort. We'll hear about something called the Manufacturing Capital Connector, which is designed just to do that. It's designed to go to Wall Street, to go to the big financiers who have the billions, and when you put them all together, trillions of dollars of investments that will come in the coming decades, and make sure they know that their return on investment is going to be great if they go into an energy community, not only because of the tax credit and the tax incentives that we're going to hear more about today, but because we know that those investments into those communities are going to be met with a great workforce, a great community, great partnerships at the town level, the community, the county level, and the state levels. So the 48C was established by originally the American Recovery and Investment Act. It's been around for a while, but it was expanded in the Inflation Reduction Act to $10 billion. I mentioned $4 billion of that $10 billion is going to go to energy communities, and it's a 30% tax credit. Those 40% of the funds for designated energy communities, you can find out the eligible communities on our maps. You'll hear more about it later from our MESC colleagues, but that is specifically designed to make sure that clean energy manufacturing, the critical minerals, and industrial decarbonization flow into our communities. So I'm going to take a little poll. How many of you are here from a community? You're a town representative, county representative, you're a community member, is the hat you're wearing here today. All right, everybody look around. All right, thank you. How many today are here from the private sector? All right, take mental notes. And how many of you here are from the federal government or associated partners to help make those connections? All right, I know all of those images didn't stick in, but we have a great blend. It looked like a third. And so what we're trying to do today is make sure that private sector investors know the opportunity that we've tried to lay out in front of you. The communities can connect to those private sector investors and then connect to the federal resources that you need, whether it's sewer and water and transportation, whether it's making sure you get that last mile of broadband to your industrial sites, whatever it is, let's make those connections today. And so I'm looking for my color card. Where are we? How am I doing? So finally, I do want to, I'm going to have a couple opportunities to get up here and react to our speakers today. But I just want to tell you, that the crowd, I had a chance to network with many of you this morning. Each and every person here is invested in making sure that we get this right, whether it's our federal partners or private sector partners or our community partners. And as we clean up our environment, as we leverage the opportunities in capping orphan wells and working on abandoned mine lands, on reinvesting into our transportation infrastructures, to modernizing our grid, all of these investments are done in a way that we make sure we're not leaving communities behind. We're not disconnecting communities into the future, that we're righting some of the wrongs of the past. And so, again, I'm really excited that you're all here, and I'm exceptionally excited to introduce our next speaker, Ben Beachy. Ben serves as a special assistant to the president for climate policy, industrial sector, and community investment. Industrial sector and community investment. In that role, he shall help shape climate and industrial policies that center on workers and hard-hit communities, including the energy communities, to help create future-facing good jobs for American workers. Over to you, Ben, a great colleague and really staunch defender of investment in communities that are left behind. Ben?
Fine. How's everyone doing?
Real good.
Real good. I like that. All right. Yeah, I may live in Washington, D.C., but I'm not from Washington, D.C., so I appreciate the call and response. So thank you, Brian. Thank you for the introduction. I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to be here. We drove in last night from Utah. There's Jack sitting back there. Jack, raise your hand. Jack's also in the White House with the National Economic Council. It was a lovely drive. Thank you to Jack for driving. Coming from other coal communities in Utah, I had a similar convening, looking how they could leverage federal investments to meet local priorities. And that is, of course, the name of the game today. I am mainly here to listen to you. As Brian names, the Biden administration is deploying a historic wave of federal funding for local economic development, particularly in energy communities. And that funding will only translate into real benefits on the ground if local leaders, like many of you, are able to call the shots on how that funding is used, how it supports locally defined priorities. So I am mainly here to listen. But since they asked me to say a few words at the beginning, let me just frame up what I see this federal funding as being all about and what it can mean for coal country. I think it's safe to say that from day one, this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, has been working to ensure that the communities that have powered our nation for generations reap the economic benefits of the clean economy. And I am not from Colorado, I'm not from Utah, but I am from a coal community in rural West Virginia. And I've seen what happens when really wrong-headed policy decides to leave behind the workers and communities that have given so much, leaving behind low-paying jobs, depleted tax revenue, empty downtowns. The downtown in the town that I grew up in, I went back a few years after having grown up there, and there was silence that greeted me from the downtown. All the businesses were closed. They weren't even boarded up. They were papered over with children's drawings from the school where I had gone to school. That's the legacy that many of our communities have faced. And seeing that legacy, a lot of people like to offer a lot of nice words, a lot of happy talk about supporting energy communities. And one thing I think I can say about President Biden is that he's putting his money where his mouth is. He is delivering the goods. $20 billion. $20 billion is the amount that this administration has invested in coal communities and other energy communities in just 3 years. That is $20 billion that right now is equipping local leaders to rebuild infrastructure, to revitalize downtowns, to clean up legacy pollution, and to train workers for growing clean energy jobs. And I am not from Colorado, I'm not from Utah, but I am from a coal community in rural West Virginia. And I've seen what happens when really wrong-headed policy decides to leave behind the workers and communities that have given so much, leaving behind low-paying jobs, depleted tax revenue, empty downtowns. The downtown Now, this funding is part of President Biden's broader Investing in America agenda, which has spurred a wave of investments, including here in Colorado. So let me just shout out some of the numbers. The infrastructure law that the president passed, or the president signed, it has deployed more than $3 billion so far to repair and upgrade Colorado's roads, bridges, and public transit. $500 million so far have come into the state to replace lead pipes and ensure clean drinking water for all Coloradans. Another $1 billion has been flowing from the infrastructure law to expand broadband access, ensure access to high-speed internet, particularly in rural communities in Colorado. The infrastructure law also specifically invests in coal communities. Brian mentioned reclaiming of abandoned mine lands. It was just last October that the Department of Interior announced $10 million that will be going to Colorado to reclaim abandoned mine lands for this year. That money is going to employ local workers to remove local environmental and health hazards while recouping lands that can be used for recreation or locally defined economic development. And while we repair, of course, we must also build. Under the Biden administration, we are seeing a manufacturing boom, the likes of which we have not seen in this nation for decades. And let me just give you another number. Since President Biden took office, companies have announced more than $3 billion of private investments in the state of Colorado to manufacture the nuts and bolts of our growing clean energy economy. The widgets that go into solar, wind, clean hydrogen, and beyond are being made here in Colorado, thanks to these investments. And indeed, thank you for that. And of course, the president's climate law offers further investments, billions more, specifically to help energy communities seize these benefits. And as Brian named, one of the biggest opportunities is what we're here to talk about today. The $10 billion tax credit to expand clean energy manufacturing, which has the very charismatic name 48C. And as you heard, $4 billion of those dollars are specifically set aside for coal communities. And that offers Colorado's coal communities a real opportunity to generate some high-paying jobs as new factories break ground in coal country to make components for solar, wind, batteries, and other clean technologies. Let me shout out some of the Colorado counties that qualify for these investments in clean energy manufacturing. We got Jefferson County, where we're seated here today. See that? You can shout out your counties. Mesa County in the west. Anyone here from Mesa? Or anywhere in the west? Most of the west of the state. Custer County in the south. Kiowa County in the east. Literally half of the state is eligible for these $4 billion specifically to manufacture our clean energy future. The climate law also includes another tax credit that offers clean energy companies a bonus if they set up wind or solar or other clean energy projects in energy communities, including all of the Colorado counties I just named. They get another big bonus if they pay prevailing wages to the workers and use apprenticeship programs to train them. That offers an opportunity to create good union jobs here in Colorado, as well-paid workers construct projects that tap into the vast wind and solar resources that Colorado has to offer affordable clean energy for local families. But look, it is not enough to just offer federal funding. Federal funding must feed local priorities. Workers and communities on the ground need to be able to convert these historic investments into good union jobs and locally driven economic development. And President Biden, recognizing this, created the Coal Communities Interagency Working Group that many of us here represent today in his first week in office. This initiative, as Brian mentioned, unites a dozen government agencies, so you don't have to go talk to 12 of us, you can talk to one of us, to equip local leaders to be able to navigate and leverage federal funding so that local leaders in coal country can call the shots and establish the path forward for their communities. The working group has set up an on-the-ground rapid response team that serves Southwest Colorado. It has set up an online database that can help you to navigate the array of federal funding opportunities available so that community groups Unions, local businesses, again, can determine the path forward. The interagency team supports the expertise of local leaders and offers technical assistance to help them leverage federal funding to achieve locally defined goals. And that is the ticket, right? When we match local leadership with federal funding, coal communities from Colorado to Appalachia can lead the way in building an economy that truly leaves no one behind. That is what President Biden's Investing in America agenda is all about, enabling hard-hit workers and communities to harness the clean energy boom and reap the rewards, to move your communities and our nation from setback to comeback. That is the mission, and we will only get there together. So I really thank you for the opportunity to come here today. I look forward to listening. Thanks. Thank you.
Ben, thank you very much. And really just to show it's all the way from the top of the federal government to our regional and local representatives from across the agencies like the USDA and the EPA and the Department of Energy, working from top to the bottom to make sure that we are connecting to energy communities. And next, I'd like to welcome Walt Copan, the Vice President for Research and was a technology transfer here at Colorado School of Mines. Happy to say that Walt and I had an opportunity to meet a few years ago as co-laboratory directors in his previous stint as the director of NIST and mine. My previous stint as the director of NATL. But well, thank you so much for the hospitality and for Colorado School of Mines hosting this event.
Great, Brian, thank you so much. Really delighted to welcome you all here to Colorado School of Mines. Thanks so much, Brian, to you, to Ben Beachy for your leadership. We're just so excited about the opportunities that are created here, bringing the energy communities together, the IWG and MESC for hosting the workshop here. We're delighted at Colorado School of Mines to host you and also to listen in on the workshop. So as mentioned, I was the director at NIST before coming here. It was great to have the chance to interact with Brian as we were both recognized in the laboratory leadership function. And I'm thrilled here at Colorado School of Mines to continue close partnerships across the federal sector. This is a public university, the first public university established in what was then the territory of Colorado. We're celebrating our 150th year, but we are a science, technology, engineering, mathematics focused university, and collaborations such as with federal agencies, with the federal laboratory system, collaborations with industry are very much part of who we are as an institution. A lot of people have debated about whether we should keep the name Mines. But it has stuck over 150 years and with a great deal of pride. This university is home to the #1 mining and mineral engineering program in the world. And we regularly work with colleagues not only around the country, but also globally to work on technology assessment and deployment opportunities. Our education and research are closely connected here and focus on technology application and deployment with expertise across the energy sector. Critical materials, of course, that are necessary for the energy transition are top of mind, together with sustainable and resilient supply chains. This is a lead university in the US also for nuclear science and engineering. And so some of our partnerships include the Idaho National Lab, and as well as the U.S. Geological Survey, which also has a strong presence here on the Mines campus, not only with the Earth Resources programs, but also looking to the future of a facility for energy and mineral resources that's under construction now here on the Mines campus. Thanks very much to the legislation that's been passed over the past several years, including the infrastructure law that really made this all come together. This is a broadly based university in material science and engineering, including materials recycling, and especially materials that are important to the renewable energy sector, such as photovoltaics. We also know that unless you have communities that are accepting of new technology options and see the value both to their standard of living and to the economy, it is a strong program here at Colorado School of Mines that focuses on humanitarian engineering. So engaging with communities to understand the value and the deployment of technologies in their local communities. So we are a close partner there to both public and private sector organizations on technology adoption. We are a globally leading energy university, and so covering the broad gamut of renewable energies, including geothermal and solar and wind. Our close partnership here in Golden with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory enables a lot of interchange around projects that are ready for deployment. And so the economic analysis and community benefits aspects are what we very much focus on as a university. We are really focused on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, decarbonizing our supply chain, diversifying our energy portfolio, and supporting people and communities in transition. So we're thrilled to host the event here today. You may have seen also the announcement about the NSF engines win here in Colorado for the climate resilience engine between the state of Colorado and the state of Wyoming. These are partnerships that also include our Native American communities and lands. And so we're thrilled to be part of that as we look at our collective energy future. We recognize that we need to come together, but also these are catalytic times with 48C being available to us to drive the economic attractiveness of new projects that enable climate resilience, new energy adoption. So I wish you all a great time here on the campus today. We hope that you have a great day of networking, of interaction, of learning with one another, and most of all, to look at opportunities to drive these new projects forward. All the best to you. Enjoy. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I have an exciting announcement to make, fresh off the presses. Today, out of the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, OCID, within the Office of Infrastructure in the Department of Energy, was announced funding 5 projects for clean energy demonstrations on current or former mine lands. These 5 projects span hard rock mining and a gold mine in Nevada, producing solar energy to very much decrease its carbon footprint. In Arizona, a project at a copper mine that is going to be using geothermal energy in a very innovative and promising way to use direct use geothermal energy to again lower its energy usage at that copper mine. And then in the eastern coal fields in Kentucky, a pumped hydro storage project that is a significant investment and the first pumped hydro storage project in the East Coast in over, I think, 30 years. And in West Virginia and Pennsylvania, 2 considerably sized solar projects. And when I say considerably sized, each one of them will be the largest solar project in its respective states when they're done. With partnerships through the Community Benefits Plan program that the Department of Energy has, where awardees must benefit the communities. They have partnerships to do displaced miner training as a component of these clean energy demonstrations on mine lands. All in all, it's $475 million of new investments in these projects, creating over 3,000 jobs. And that's fresh off the presses. You can find that today. So I wanted to share that because, here we are at Colorado School of Mines, and we're looking at ways to continue to innovate the next generation of mining technologies across the board, looking toward lower carbon opportunities. So I wanted to recognize a few people who are here in the crowd today as well. I want to recognize Matt Kirker, who's the regional director for Senator Bennett. He's here today and has worked very closely with the IWG and with the folks certainly in Northwest Colorado. And the senator helped craft the Inflation Reduction Act, which of course expanded this 48C tax credit. And thank you, Senator, and thank you, Matt, for your leadership on behalf of the energy communities everywhere, not just in Colorado. I also want to recognize, here in our midst is Sam Greenberg, who's a representative from Representative Brittany Peterson's office. Thank you, Sam, for being here, and Jeff Dominic from Senator Hickenlooper's office. Thank you so much for your interest in this program, and we look forward to continuing to work with you all on making sure that we have the right kind of impact into energy communities that we all desire.